So we have now the next speaker and the next talk, Elena Dragana-Chorna, looking for negation in all the wrong places. The color exclusion problem.
Thank you very much. I'll try to discuss the logical aspects of negation, but in non-verbal domain. On the one hand, it seems extremely strange, since we are by definition the animals that talk, and therefore the animals that deny. Being non-verbal seems to imply being non-logical. On the other hand, according to an expert of a natural history of negation, Lawrence Horn, negation is a suspect guest at the logical table, if not a spy from the extra-logical domains. Following Wittgenstein, I'm going to look for negation in an absolutely wrong extra-logical place, namely in the color vision. To be more precise, I'd like to discuss so-called color exclusion problem. A case study will be the oppositional relations of red and green. One of my key points will be that the logical pattern of oppositional relations transcends the conceptual field of relations between standard logical connectives and quantifiers. The discussion will be focused on the logic of binary colors. Actually, we perceive many colors to be binary. We may see bluish red, but it seems impossible to see a color that would be described as reddish green and bluish yellow. According to the opening processing model of colors, not only we never see a reddish green or a bluish yellow, but rather it is in principle impossible to have an experience of these colors. Thus, several pairs of opening colors seem not to be combined to form a binary color, and in a sense negate each other. As Ludwig Wittgenstein pointed out, colors possess logical structures because of their internal relations. He says in his remarks on color, I quote, "Among the colors, kinship and contrast, and that is logic." Moreover, Wittgenstein includes into the scope of logic the so-called puzzle proposition. There can be a bluish green, but not a reddish green. However, the necessity of this proposition has been recently challenged by reports that forbidden reddish green and bluish yellow can be perceived under special artificial conditions. My main concern is to discuss whether the surprising results cast doubt on the Wittgenstein's thesis about the logical structure of colors. My aim is to interpret the empirical results as evidence for game-theoretical semantics for negation. To argue for the advantage of the game-theoretical approach, I've tried to propose the uniform game-theoretical model for both for standard open-end perception of colors and for its violations in psychological experiments. So, my first question is the following. Why did Wittgenstein consider relations between colors to be logical? To begin with, let's turn to Tractatus. According to Tractatus, I quote, "The general validity of logic might be called essential. Yet, what kind of general validity is essential and, as a result, logical for Wittgenstein? And why did he consider the relations between colors to be essential or internal? By definition, I quote, a property is internal if it is unthinkable that its object shouldn't possess it. For example, for Wittgenstein, it is unthinkable, and therefore logically impossible for two colors to be at one place at the same time." Quotation. Now here is a new puzzling question. On the one hand, color descriptions should be elementary. On the other hand, they cannot be elementary. The point is that they are logically interdependent, but Wittgenstein said in Tractatus that elementary propositions are independent. This is a well-known problem of color exclusion. To solve this problem, let's move with Wittgenstein from Tractatus to some remarks on logical form written in 1929. Here, Wittgenstein is interested in examining what he calls the logical structure or the logical form of the phenomena, as well as in designing a symbolic language which in some way pictures such structures. For Wittgenstein, a color incompatibility claim doesn't express experience in its usual sense because it's valid due to geometrical organization of the space of color representation. The point is that color space is a space of possibilities and therefore a logical space. But now a new question arises. Let me remind you Wittgenstein's puzzle proposition from remarks on colors. There can be a bluish green, but not a reddish green. Is this proposition true in the logical space of color representation? In general, is there a logical space of binary colors representation? In his famous paper, Reds, Green, and Logical Analysis, Hilary Putnam pointed out that Wittgenstein's puzzle proposition is analytic, in the sense in which analytic means true on the basis of definitions plus logic. He proposed to define two second-level predicates, red and green, and in defining these predicates, we must be restricted by the postulate, I quote, nothing can be classified as both a shade of red and a shade of green. Hilary Putnam's approach to color incompatibility has gained widespread acceptance among recent writers on perception. For example, Larry Hardin says in his fundamental book Color for Philosophers, I quote, perhaps not being red is part of the concept of being green. Nevertheless, the introduction of certain meaning postulates seems to be irrelevant to the exegesis of Wittgenstein's ideas. The meaning postulates expand a family of analytic truths by means of dictionary conventions. On the contrary, for Wittgenstein, any attempt to explain truth of the color incompatibility claim is misguided, since the question of truth doesn't make sense for rules of logical syntax. As he pointed out in the so-called big typescript, I quote, the proposition at one place at one time there is only room for one color is of course a masked proposition of grammar. Its negation is not a contradiction, rather it speaks against a rule of our accepted grammar. As Wittgenstein says in his philosophical remarks, I quote, grammatical conventions cannot be justified by describing what is represented. Any such description already presupposes the grammatical rules. The end of the quotation. To sum up, the meaning postulates deal with lexicon, but internal relations of colors concern grammar, that is, possibilities, not facts. In general, the concept of structure is grammatical for Wittgenstein. I quote, the genuine criterion for the structure is precisely which proposition makes sense for it, not which are true. To look for this is the method of philosophy. Hintik again. Contrary to the meaning postulates approach, the father of game theoretical semantics, Jaakko Hintik, proposed to represent the concept of color by a function which maps points in visual space into a color space. So I quote, the logical incompatibility of the two color descriptions is shown by their logical representation. A function cannot have two different values for the same argument because of its logical form. The end of quotation. My proposal is to generalize Hintik's approach on binary colors, namely on the structure of reddish-green and bluish-yellow experiences. Psychology. According to the opening processing model of colors that goes back to Ewald Heron, There are different types of retinal photoreceptors with optimal spectral sensitivity to specific short, middle, or long wavelengths. Signals from the cone are assumed to be combined in an opposite fashion to produce opposite signals on retinal ganglion cells. This means that the cells are excited by the presentation of a given color and inhibited by presence of its antagonists. Red, green, and blue, yellow are supposed to be spectrally opposite channels. Thus, it would be impossible for a human observer to perceive both red and green, or blue and yellow. The point is that it would presuppose the simultaneous transmission of positive and negative signals in the same channel. As red cancels green and blue cancels yellow, reddish green and bluish yellow are considered to be forbidden binary colors by the opponent processing either. Perhaps one of the most surprising results in modern psychological literature on color vision is the report that reddish green and bluish yellow colors can be perceived in so-called stabilized image experiments. In order to see, the eye needs contrast, which is provided by its very fast movements. If the eye totally lacks contrast for a few seconds, then the image will fade out. A stabilized image is an image that is projected on a part of the visual field and which follows the movements of the eye. This can be done, for example, with special eye tracker. Here. If an image is stabilized on a part of the retina for a certain time, thus producing a sort of informational whole, then the brain tends to complete the image by so-called filling-in process, using the information of the surround. In stabilized image experiments, the subjects were presented with red and green and blue and yellow stripes on a black field, such that the red and green stripes had a common border. The red-green field was stabilized using an eye tracker. This was done in order to provoke a filling-in process. In relation of the classical opponent processing model, stabilized image experiments have shown that by stabilizing the retinal image between a pair of red-green and blue-yellow equiluminant fields, the entire region can be perceived simultaneously as both red and green, blue and yellow. Or to be more precise, as a forbidden mixture color, whose red and green, blue and yellow components were as clear as, for example, the green and blue components of aqua. My proposal is to interpret this phenomena in game-theoretical framework. Actually, from the very beginning, the opponent processing model of colors developed in the game-theoretical framework. It suggested that the basis for color sensations lies in a process of winner-take-all competition between red and green or blue and yellow. Now it's clear that this model must take into account the interactions between teams of color-sensitive cells. Biela, Gleason and Solo assuming that the struggle between red and green or blue and yellow teams is simply blocked by the stabilization. I suppose that there is no need to block the game processing, since a variety of game-theoretical independencies provides important insights into the theory of opponent processing. In particular, the border synergy effect may be captured by the game-theoretical notion of payoff independence. Payoff independence logic, PI logic, was developed by our colleagues and friends, Finnish logicians, Peter and Sando. They distinguish two types of independences in semantical games: informational independence, that is, players' ignorance concerning the choices made in the game, and strategical independence that affects players' strategical decisions. For example, players may lack information concerning the structural meta properties of the game, including the strategy used in the game, the value of the player's payoff functions, the number of agents in the team, It's all. PI logic is interested in the strategical independence. It goes back to John Harsanyi, pioneering papers on games with incomplete information. Harsanyi had a Nobel Prize in economics. The main idea of my proposal is the interpretation of the opponency violations in payoff independence in stabilized image games between red, green, and blue-yellow teams of color-sensitive cells. In winner-take-all games, the following holds. If there is a winning strategy of the red team, then there doesn't exist a winning strategy of the green team, and vice versa. In stabilized image games, the information exchange between the opponent teams is blocked by stabilization on the cortical meta level. Consequently, both red and green, blue and yellow teams have winning strategies in these games. So to say stabilized image games are overdefined. Thus, the law of non-contradiction fails in the generalized logic of colors, allowing the simultaneous perception of antagonistic pairs of colors. In contrast to winner-take-all games, stabilized image games are non-strictly competitive. To clarify my interpretation, let me borrow a funny chair analogy from some remarks of logical forms. According to Wittgenstein, the proposition red and green don't go together at the same place at the same time is similar to the proposition Brown and Jones now sit in this chair. As he say, I quote, the propositions Brown now sits in the chair and Jones now sits in the chair, each in a sense try to set their subject term on the chair, but the logical product of these propositions will put them both there at once, and this leads to a collusion, a mutual exclusion of the terms at the end of the quotation. Obviously, this chair analogy gives rise to a worry. Wittgenstein seems to speak about physical, not about visual space. In my point of view, there is no need to worry if you don't consider grammatical rules to be empirical statements. The proposition A is red and green has no sense because internal relations are scaffolding for logical space. Internal relations exist in logical, that is, informational space. So if red team doesn't know that green team already has winning strategy, it is logically possible that red and green go together at the same place at one time in the informational space. Brown and Jones can sit together in one chair if the chair is a part of the logical space furniture. Yes. Now our last question. Actually, the appeal to neuroscience seems to be unsuitable for the interpretation of Wittgenstein's notion of logical space, since he clearly doesn't think that the science, and particularly neuroscience, is relevant to the resolution of philosophical problems. He considered psychological concepts to be everyday concepts. According to Wittgenstein, psychological data cannot influence the geometry of our color space. Wittgenstein put the question. It's here. Yes. But can I describe the practice of people who have a concept, red is green, that we don't possess? In any case, I certainly can't teach this practice to anyone. He asks also, now to what extent is it the matter of logic rather than psychology that someone can or cannot learn a game? I say, the person who cannot play this game doesn't have this concept. Speaking about logical space, he deals with logic rather than with psychology. As Wittgenstein pointed out, when dealing with logic, one cannot imagine it. That means one doesn't know what one should imagine here. And the end of quotation. I suppose, however, that some new psychological experiments may influence our language games, which in turn constitute for us what the color are. In fact, psychological experiments may contribute in our history of language games with color. It is possible, for example, that tomorrow the invention of special glasses with a built-in eye tracker will make reddish green and bluish yellow new common colors of our everyday form of life. That's all.
Remarks?
Two short questions. The first is about the nature of the judgment. There can be a bluish green, but not a reddish green. Is this something like, in order to take again Victor's terminology, is this something like an analytic a posteriori truth or synthetic a priori truth?
Yes, it's rather difficult because of the evaluation of the approach of Wittgenstein. In some remarks on logical form, for example, it seems to be a tautology a posteriori. It's very strange. Tautology, but a posteriori. Yes, it's a strange notion. It's exactly the same.
Okay.
Yes, but later in his Nachlass and remarks on colors, we may see that it's only a rule of grammatic. Seems to me a rule of grammatic. It's a priori as concerns our investigation of colors. It's a kind of a priori made a priori in a sense of rules, of grammatical rules. To say that there is bluish red, senseless, only senseless. It's not false.
My
Yes.
second short question. According to Wittgenstein, there seems to be a very qualitative difference between the judgment. There cannot be a reddish green, and a Daltonian cannot see a red or green. So, where is exactly the difference between both judgments? Between Daltonian cannot see the green, and I cannot see a bluish green. I can see a reddish green.
I suppose that your question concerns the notion of our usual, of our form of lives. There is a form of life, there is our usual language game with colors. What is color for Wittgenstein? It's only our color. Yes. Yes. No. There is a there is a novel of Lovecraft, The Color Out of Space, which describes an impossible color, and out of space. For Wittgenstein, as concerned Wittgenstein, we may see, we cannot speak about the color out of logical space. But what is logical space? It is determined by our usual language games as form of life. But I think that we can change our language games with colors. For example, with the help of psychological experiments. For example. So, for the language game of Daltonic, it's not our language game. Yes, we cannot understand what I must imagine. I cannot understand what. I cannot imagine because I cannot understand what should I imagine.
One more questions? Remarks? Yes. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
One more.
It's a question. May I take a microphone? Thank you. It's a question or remark of an absolute profane in logic. Irina Grigorina, can you say why blue and yellow look harmonically together when they see them together. And red and green not so harmonically, like traffic light. Well,
It's a question of taste.
it's a question of this, maybe all patterns of culture, okay?
Yes.
Not logic.
Yes, it's a pattern of culture. There are forbidden colors in Japan, for example.
Oh.
You know the forbidden colors in the Japan cultures, for example, and red and green. For me, it's a color of Christmas. Yes, it's very nice.
Oh,
Yes.